Hello there. Welcome to Proloquo mini tutorial. Okay, so this tutorial is going to cover some options restricting access to certain elements on the interface. The assumption is that the user is not the programmer and that it's possibly a child who is a beginning user of high-tech AAC. Now, for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to have you go ahead in your own time and open the settings wheel and add a user and follow the steps that Proloquo2Go lays out, and you'll eventually get to this screen here. It's just going to load up here, and if you want your screen to look like this one here, choose Crescendo Core Vocabulary followed by Basic Communication Vocabulary, and you will arrive at a 3x6 standard series of buttons, which is the template for Proloquo2Go's basic communication. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to modify the message window. And this is the message window up here. And as each button is selected, it appears in the message window. I'll show you.
I want.
And for this user, I want to remove the message window, but I could also change its size as well. And to do that, you need to go into the settings wheel, and then you're going to select appearance. And right up top there's a slider, and if you move that slider to the left, the default is always to have the message window open, but if you turn it off, you'll notice that it disappears. You can also mess around with some other things in there that can change the size of the message window. Okay, alright, so next we're going to change the spacing between the buttons so that there's a bigger contrast between the buttons and the background, and they stand out a little bit more. And for this, what I'm going to do, I'm still in options, but I'm going to jump down to view, okay? Excuse me. I'm going to jump down to the advanced options of view. And in there, you will notice that there is a prompt called button spacing. And this takes us through how we can change the space between the buttons. Okay? And I'm going to choose medium. And then if I jump back to advanced view, I also have an option to change the background color. Right now it's in gray number 6, and I'm going to choose gray number 2, or you could choose purple number 2, or whatever you like. This is the color that my client likes. Alright, so let's just keep putting it back to the beginning here. And now I want to look at access method options. In order to modify this device for a user who doesn't have very accurate fine motor skills, we're going to impose an amount of time that they must hold the button down in order to make their selection. So the default is always 0 seconds, so the minute I touch the screen here, the voice outputs. So go ahead, open the settings wheel, and scroll down. Excuse me, we're still in appearance, so scroll down to access method, okay, and open it up. And use the plus and minus buttons to add or subtract time, and it's in point something of a second, so I'm going to increase that to like 0.3 of a second. So that means that the user needs to hold the button down for 0.3 of a second in order for the voice to output. So we'll take a look at what that looks like.
I want.
Okay, and there's another nice nifty thing you can add on to this as well. Just notice if you don't hold it down, what doesn't happen. So I also like this for somebody who's got a tremor or who likes to tap a lot. And basically, well, maybe somebody with a tremor wouldn't use it, but you know, those kids who like to tap a lot. But it can encourage them to hold down properly. All right, so going back to, oh man, okay. Okay, so you'll see we're in access method, and one more thing I'm going to add to this is to turn on the select on release. And what this does is it adds a nice little visual cue, and a red line will encircle the button, and when the 0.3 seconds have elapsed, it's going to turn blue. And this is a nice visual aid to cue the user to know when they have held the button for a sufficient amount of time, and the voice will output once the finger has lifted. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. So we're going to engage the finger, wait till it turns blue. Now, nothing happens unless that circle goes blue. Okay, welcome back to part 2. Last thing I'm going to show you today is how to restrict access to some of the taskbar buttons. And this is the taskbar down here. Got those little symbols at the bottom. And specifically, we're going to remove the keyboard, the recent view, and the edit tool. And this will be a useful control to put in place, again, if your user has a tendency to brush off the screen and accidentally just lose where they're at. So let's go ahead and go into, make sure we hold the button down for 0.3 of a second. Let's scroll down past access method into restrictions. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of sliders here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the edit mode, and you'll notice the little pencil down here is going to disappear. You might want to know how to turn on and off this a lot, because you're going to need to be able to change things. But when you're not programming it and the child is using it, it's kind of nice not to have it on. So pencil is gone. I'm going to turn off mail, message, Twitter, Facebook. Now, I'm also going to turn off the typing view. You'll notice this one disappear. And the recent view. And the keyboard button. Okay, that was the keyboard button. And that's it. Alright? Except, I want to do one more thing, because this home button is really tiny, and that's the way we get to navigate back to the home page. So what I'm going to take a look at here in appearance is we're going to look at the toolbar size. Sorry, I think I might have called it the taskbar. And right now, the appearance of the toolbar is small, but I'd like to make it bigger just to highlight that home button. So I'm going to select large or medium. Let's do large. Okay. All right. So now, if I navigate away from the home page, for example,
How's it going?
I want.
Good. And back to the home button.